and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast. It has been a bit of a hectic week at Sunderland following Saturday's 1-1 draw at Millwall. Tony Mowbray, as you all know, was sacked after 18 months on Wearside. There's been tons of pretty cool rhyming names thrown into the hat, such as Will Still. However, perhaps most importantly, eyes now focus on the actual game of football on Saturday, where we think it'll be Mike Dodds in charge unless things change. And as always, we're going to be here to preview the game, and I'm joined by a debutant on the podcast in the shape of Chris Hall, not a rhyming name, sadly, from Albion Analysis. Chris, how are you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, feel free to change my name if it makes it easier. If the rhyming thing is a prerequisite, then just go with whatever you want. Hall is not the most difficult last name in the world to rhyme either, so you should excuse the pun, have a ball. So
I was going to say the only thing I could think of, I was thinking there's a rhyme with Chris, and the only thing I come up with was piss, and I feel that's quite bad. That's sort of giving me flashbacks to junior school. So when the first time kids learnt that word and realised it rhymed with my name. So we'll not go there unless we want this to turn into a therapy session. Yeah, promise I won't do that. We'll get straight to it from the top. Look, I think West Brom have been in really solid form, but if you're looking at the last game, I watched it. Late winner after a late equaliser. We're a few days on from that, and look, it's always a pain in the arse conceding in the 100th minute or whatever it is. But how are you feeling after the game, and how was the performance?
I've got to be honest. I mean, it was one of those goals that just absolutely punches you in the stomach. It really. I mean, that one really hurt. I'm not even going to sit here and lie that I didn't go home absolutely miserable. I was my missus had come to the game with me. I think she had the common sense not to speak to me all the way home, not speak to me all evening, which was a very smart move, to be honest. I was not in a good place. But when you actually reflect on it afterwards, there's so many positives to take away from it. I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know here, that Leicester are comfortably the best side in this division by a long, long way. No, it's not even close. I upset Ipswich fans by saying this on Talking Town the other week when I suggested that Leicester will run away with the league, and they went, "Oh, hello, us." And I was like, "No, sorry, guys, you won't even be close come the end of the season." But they're class. They're comfortably the best team in the league, and we more than match them for the vast majority of the game. They've scored one absolutely fantastic goal. Yes, there's elements of it we could do better, but I mean the run from Ndidi, the clip cross, the run from Kiernan Dewsbury Hall to head it in, it's a Premier League goal in the Championship. That's what it is. But then we've battled, we've got ourselves level, and to be honest, we've only lost in the last minute because we've had a choice to stick or twist, and we've twisted, and it hasn't come off. We've rolled the dice, and it's come up snake eyes, unfortunately. But that is what it is. And it was interesting to hear Corberán come out after the game, and he obviously the first thing he gets asked about is the last minute goal, and he says, "Look, there are elements within the way, tactically in the way that we defended it that we could do better." He said, "But if you want me to come out here and condemn the mentality of trying to win a home game in the 95th minute, I'm not going to do it. I love that mentality. I want that mentality." And I thought, do you know what? Yeah, it hurts that we lost it. And the other thing is, I mean, because he's very clinical. He's almost, mathematic in his approach, and he quite literally pointed out that it's a gamble to gain 2 points or lose 1, and is in his mind, that makes total sense. And actually, you look across the course of the piece with Corberán, and we really haven't drawn that many games because the guy doesn't settle for draws. I've seen previous Albion managers when we're drawing against a decent team, just basically go, what we have, we hold. We don't lose the game. And Corberán's not like that at all. Corberán, if there's an opportunity to go and win the game, we'll try. We'll go and win it. I mean, look. When we came to your place last season, you bossed us for 45 minutes. We come out second half a completely different team, get level, and you sort of think, Albion will sit on this. A sort of like a draw away at Sunderland in the first game back after the World Cup is not a bad result, but we didn't. We went at you and we won the game deservedly in the end because of it. And that's just Corberán all over. That when I go on these sorts of shows, people always ask me for a score prediction, and my answer's generally always the same. Probably 2-1, but I've no idea which way. Because that's kind of what I expect. I expect it to be 1-1 with about 15 minutes to go, and we'll go for it, and it could go either way. But that's kind of where we're at.
Looking at the form, and obviously, you sound positive for a reason. And if anyone's not aware of that, prior to that game, and Leicester, we've touched on that, and it's accurate. They're the best side in the league, so there's the caveat. But you've won 5 of the last 6, and that includes a win over Ipswich, who, look, are doing pretty well. You're currently sitting 5th. I think the top 2 are running away a little bit. But how confident are you that this season can be the season West Brom can get promoted, maybe via the playoffs?
I mean, you talk about the run. What's interesting about that run is we had a run of games where we beat QPR and Coventry in back-to-back games. We'd beaten Sheffield Wednesday just a couple of weeks before that as well, and we were climbing the table. I think we got into 6 actually after the Coventry victory, and a lot of Albion fans said, "It's very nice, but it's the next 6 games because I think there was a little bit of who have we really played up to this point. We played Leeds very early on in the season, but we hadn't really played any of the big boys, and we knew our next 6 were Hull at home, Southampton away, Ipswich at home, Cardiff away, Leicester at home, Sunderland away, and everybody said those 6 games. That's where we find out where our Albion are at. Well, we beat Hull. We lost to Southampton, but anybody would tell you we were the better side. Neutrals have said it. Even Southampton fans have said it. We beat Ipswich, hadn't lost an away game all season. We're the first team to keep a clean sheet against them since Valentine's Day, and we're the first team to stop them having a shot on target for nearly 2 years. We beat Cardiff away, a team that are a difficult side in this league. Had just won 2-1 away at Preston with two goals in the 90th minute, and we've lost to Leicester with a last minute goal. It's not just the form; it's who we're doing it against. And because I think there were question marks after we beat Coventry that it's all well and good beating teams in the last third of the league, but can you really do it against the sort of top 6 to 8 teams? Well, we have. You're the last one of the really really tricky games, tricky run of games that we've had to contest with before the season largely rotates. We've still got a couple of teams that we haven't played, Rotherham, Stoke, Norwich, but with all due respect to them, there's nothing particularly terrifying in there. The 6 teams that we looked at and went, they will really test us. Well, we've beat 3 of them, and whilst we've lost to the other 2, I don't think anybody would say we deserve to lose the other 2. In answer to your question, I don't know. Because there's one huge caveat with Albion that has to be stated, and that is that we are financially in a massive amount of trouble. Practically every player was up for sale in the summer. We already had one £20 million loan from MSD Holdings. We've had to take a top up on that loan only a couple of weeks ago, which we don't quite know how much it was. We know it was a lot less than the 20 mil, but it's still going to have been more than a pocket full of change. Let's put it that way. And we don't know who we're going to have to sell in January. We've just had Matt Phillips ruled out for 4 months, who's probably been our best player since Carlos Corberán came in as manager. There's definitely going to be, unless out of nowhere, not say out of nowhere, because all the talk is that we are advancing with talks with various parties, but I don't think there's any suggestion that we expect a takeover to be done and dusted by the new year. And so I don't think first and foremost anybody expects us to have any money to spend in to replace people like Matt Phillips in January. But far more importantly than that is are we going to have to sell anyone? Are we going to have to sell one of our key players? And I mean, I don't think Grady Diangana will go there, not least because he's going away to the African Cup of Nations, which probably will rescue us from having to sell him. But there's a number of players. I mean, Alex Mowatt's been unbelievable this season. He's only got a few months left on his contract. If somebody comes knocking with a few $100,000 for him, are we in a position where we have to cash in because of who he's similar with Kipre, who's been absolutely outstanding? If somebody comes knocking with a bit of money, his contract's up in the summer. Are we gonna have to sell him? We resisted overtures for people like Alex Palmer, Brandon Thomas Asante, John Swift, people like that in the summer. Are we going to be able to do that again? So, I mean, to answer your question, I know I've kind of gone around the houses to do so. If we still have the same squad come the 1st of February, yeah, I'm confident because I massively believe in this manager. I love this group of players. I think they're a small group, but they're a tight knit group. There's a lot of talent in there. I think we've got an exciting team. But where I massively drop the caveat is I don't know how many of them we're going to have come 1st of Feb.
You touched on Corberan before, and I think, from the outside looking in, I don't know a great deal about him, but he's interesting to say the least. There's sometimes a manager that'll kind of prick your interest in the same league, and you think, it seems like he's doing all right. So I dug in a little bit. He's been there like 14 months. His win ratio, I think this is league games only, 49.6. That's the best in his career. So he already came quite well rated and highly rated, and he's came and done better than he has done anywhere previously. You've already said you highly rate him. How good of an appointment has he been? Because when you reach that 14-month period, you do get to a point where you go, right, I think I know what we've got here, and you can make a kind of a pretty good assumption on what you think he's going to do moving forward.
I don't think it's an overstatement to say that when in years to come, we look back on this period, I think we will say that Carlos Corberan saved this football club in the same way that Gary Megson saved this football club in 2000, because Gary Megson came in at a time when we were having to sell players and we were on the verge of relegation to League One, and we were struggling desperately, and he kept us up on the final day. And we then bounced on and went into the Premier League. Very similarly, Carlos Corberan came in. We're hemorrhaging money. We've got nothing to spend. We're bottom of the league under Steve Bruce on the 1st of November. And he comes in, he gets us to within one win of the playoffs. We to be honest, we were in the playoffs until you started putting Preston to the sword on the final day. So I mean, there was a period of about 15-20 minutes on the final day when we were in the playoff places. That's how close we came to making them, and now he's gone one better, and or so it seems for the time being anyway, and has us competing very strongly up in the top 6. He's done an unbelievable job against a backdrop of just a complete and utter farce behind the scenes. Like, we've got an owner who's out in China. I think he's been to like 1 game, 2 games since he bought the football club. He's got zero interest in it. He's taken money out like we're his own personal piggy bank. He's the ownership of the football club has become completely splintered, and we're owned by a whole bunch of subsidiaries that that we're even Action for Albion, the fan protest group, who've done an unbelievable job trying to pick this apart, have had hard yards trying to make sense of this totally tangled web of an ownership that we've got. That would have crippled most clubs. That you look at the majority of clubs who have a total and utter mess going on behind the scenes, and it reflects on the pitch. And Corberan has somehow managed to block that out from the players, and he's managed to create this unity within the group. The players love playing for him. That much is clear. The ones, I mean, Jason Mulumby, who was our player of the season last season, has been sat on the bench most of this season. You haven't heard a peep out of him. He doesn't look like he's throwing his toys out the pram. Players just seem to get on with it under Corberan. I'll happily say we're the most organised side in the Championship. We might not be the best, but we're the most organised. I mean, our XG against numbers are just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we kept Ipswich to 0.2 XG. Like, Ipswich have the top scorers in the championship. They have the most shots on target. They have the highest XG per game, and we kept them down to an XG of 0.2. Nobody does that. Absolutely nobody does that. I mean, at home we've just been absolutely ridiculous. There's only Leicester that I can see. To be honest, since August, who've managed over one non-penalty XG at the Hawthorns. I mean, that's crazy. Like nobody is that defensively solid. He's just an unbelievable manager. And I mean, look, I should say it quietly because I don't want him going anywhere else. But you know, he can stay at the club for as long as he likes. As far as I'm concerned, he won't, because he's destined for really, really big things. And I don't mean, you know, I had a bit of banter with some Sheffield United fans on Twitter because somebody put him as a candidate for the Sheff U job, and I was just like, come off it. Like, he wouldn't take that job. Like, why would he? When I say he's destined for big things, I mean he will go. His next job will be something like a Brighton or a Brentford, that is a smaller Premier League club, but extremely well run. And after that, the sky's the limit for the bloke. I honestly think he will end up managing a Champions League club. I'm not saying an English Champions League club, because I realise that's a very, very big statement. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up managing a team in the Champions League somewhere across Europe, because he's just that good a manager. He really is.
His reputation has been really high, and I think, you know, he hasn't done a bad job, to my knowledge, anywhere that he's been. One player that is going to come to the Stadium Light on Saturday, who I feel like we haven't seen for ages, but I could be wrong with this. I don't think we've actually seen him at all, but again, I might be wrong with this. Hasn't really played, joined you in the summer. You didn't really make that many signings in the summer. You've explained the reason behind that. But Josh Maja got his first goal with the equaliser in the 89th minute, and I kind of forgot he existed, to be honest. But he did a really good job at Sunderland, and look, it was a turbulent time. It was awful. It was only for 6 months, but loads of Sunderland fans will tell you if he stays for the next 6 months, we get out of League One in the first shot.
What sort of reception do you think he'll get? We were actually debating that, yeah, because you watch Sunderland till I die, and he sort of leaves a bit promptly and clearly not with the best wishes of the management staff. It would seem so. I did wonder whether he was going to get a bit of a hot reception.
I'd be absolutely shocked if he didn't get a good one, mainly because the people who on the documentary are a little bit upset about it would not get the best reception if they came back. So I would certainly give him a good one. It was only 6 months, but 17 goals or so in that sort of 6 months. But he's, you know what, he's not really kicked on. I think we all know what happened with Bordeaux, at least on the perimeters of what happened, and he kind of didn't really set off there. He went to Fulham, he gets 2 goals, I think it was against Everton, but then doesn't really do much else. And then he ends up West Brom. He's appeared 8 times, and that's not 8 starts, but he has scored his first goal in the last game. What's the early opinions? I know it's hard to form the full opinion at the moment.
It's interesting, actually. I put a poll up on the Albion Analysis X account earlier today because it was one of the big talking points on this week's pod of who would you start up front against Sunderland. Maja, Brandon Thomas Asante, both of them or neither. And Maja was, last I checked, was winning by an absolute street. Albion fans want to see him start, and the second highest vote was for both of them. So there was around about 16% of people who were choosing an option that didn't involve Maja starting. So I think it's fair to say that that around about sort of like 84% of Albion fans that I've polled want Maja to start. I think the opinion of him is good. I mean, first of all, his minutes don't really paint a fair picture because there's context around that. He obviously came to us not having had much of a pre-season, so he needed a bit of time doing that. He got sort of like eased into the side, sort of getting the last 5-10 minutes of games to come on and replace Brandon Thomas Asante, and then we went away to Bristol City and we got battered first half. And he brought Maja on. It was either at half time or very early on in the second half. And Maja just absolutely destroyed them. Like Thomas Asante was running on beyond him, and Maja was just picking the ball up in pockets. Like he's got such good technical ability, it's unbelievable. And he was just like threading balls through, and Thomas Asante was having a field day. And then in the last minute, Maja gets the ball wide side of the penalty area, and he looks like he's just about to smash it in the bottom corner for us to win 1-0. And the defender flies out of nowhere. And it looked like what he'd done was made an unbelievable challenge. But actually, when you saw it in the super slow-mo, what he does is he smashes Maja's ankle. And he basically damaged some ankle ligaments. And he was out for, it was a good couple of months. It was a good couple of months. Yeah, that was way back in September, I think. So he's missed a lot of games. He's only come back into the side the last few weeks, but he's come back in and he's looked really good. He came on against Leicester, and yeah, I mean, he's not an out and out 9, is he? He's not the guy who's going to go up there and hold the ball up and lead the line for you in quite that way. But I mean, if he drops off a little bit and players run in behind him, his technical ability, his close control, some of the things he can do is just fantastic. He's so calm as well when he gets it. It's like the whole game slows down for him. Like, you know, it's like watching something from the Matrix when he's dodging the bullets. Like it's mad. It's mad watching. I personally love him. And he seems to have the right attitude as well. Sometimes when you get those kind of languid players, there's a worry that, okay, but are they lazy with it? He's not lazy. He wants, and he's got the right attitude. He's got that desire. That comes through very, very clearly. He's just been really, really unlucky with, like I say, with injuries, because he came half fit. He got fit. He got 45 minutes at Bristol City and then gets smashed in injury time. And then, and like I say, he's only just come back into the side. But the consensus from the Albion fans that I've polled, which by no means is the entire fan base, is that they want him to start on Saturday, and it'll be interesting to see if he does, because conversely, Brandon Thomas Asante is not having a great time. He missed a chance against Cardiff from like right underneath the crossbar. He was about 5-6 yards out. It was should have just been a simple header to nod it in, and somehow he's got underneath the ball. He's jumped too early, and as he's coming back down, the ball's come to him, and he's somehow headed it over. And he's had a few like that this season. We drew with Millwall, and he missed some chances in the second half against them as well. And there's just been a few games where it's just not happened for Brandon, and I really like him. Again, he's another one with a cracking attitude and will run all day for you and will bully defenders. He's horrible. He must be horrible to play against, but I kind of feel like for his own good, he sort of needs taking out the firing line at the moment, because it's just, you know, when that conversation starts and really starts going that, you know, oh, he's no good, he couldn't finish his breakfast, all this sort of thing. And it's like, it just doesn't need, that snowball does not need to start gathering a lot of snow for him. It's I think he would be better off sitting on the bench on Saturday and let Maja have a go. It's his old club. To be honest, it seems, I don't think he started a game yet for us this season, so it almost seems poetic that his first start would be against the club that he walked away from English football from. We're
very, very Sunderland, and we've had about 1 million players. I think I've got my figures right in that 1 million, maybe 1,000,001 that have came back and scored on their first visit. So for West Brom fans, if you are listening, you definitely want Josh Maja to start. If you're a Sunderland fan, you don't. One person that obviously is normally a big conversation and was on last season's preview pod with West Brom fans, the home and away, is Tony Mowbray, but he's away. I think a lot of Sunderland fans, and look, it's not 100%, but a lot of Sunderland fans can understand how it's come to pass, whether you agree with it or not, is then sort of a 60-40 split, I think, at the moment, although, again, my figures are definitely not 100% on that. He's fondly remembered at West Brom. You know, when we were looking at, can he get us up, West Brom was the only example, and the West Brom fans that we spoke to last year were the only ones who sort of saw Tony in the same light that we did. Good football, good for the young players, sort of talking about, I remember vaguely a West Brom fan telling me that he would always refer to his players as players with soft feet.
Lovely soft feet.
Lovely soft feet.
Yeah,
that was it. So he's well liked, and look, he's well liked at Sunderland, and he's one of the only managers that has actually been sacked or left, whatever it may be, that is probably going to go with a good reputation. But for me, it felt like the right time. But I know from the outside looking in, a lot of people are kind of shocked by it, which it sometimes happens, doesn't it, when you're not a fan of the club and it comes out of nowhere. But as a West Brom fan, because you have a little bit more of a vested interest because of him being ex-West Brom manager, what did you make of his sacking?
I mean, look, first of all, full disclosure, I'm biased because I worked for West Brom for 8 years in the communications department, and I worked with Tony for the whole time he was at the football club. And I love Tony. I got on really well with him. I found him a unique character, and I mean that in the best possible way. I know sometimes when people use the word unique, it's a sly dig. This isn't. I just found him a truly contemplative man who, he really. It was a weird time for the club because the club had got a lot of older pros in. Brian Robson had just departed, and he got on really, really well with the players. And Tony had to move a lot of players on because I think there was a lot of players there that were very much Brian's players. And I think it was important that Tony got his own players in after we missed out on promotion. And I think the numbers were something like 13 out 11 in that summer when we ended up going on to win the championship. And it was a great place to be around the training ground because he brought in so many of these young, hungry players. He brought in a young Chris Brunt, James Morrison, Roman Bednar came down from Scotland, Ishmael Miller, came from Manchester City, his first club really, as a pro, And then you've got the old pros around the place, people like Jonathan Greening, Kevin Phillips, Paul Robinson, just, Dean Kiley in goal, just really sort of like marshalling these guys through. And Tony just built a really, really good ethos. And he knew which players he could lean on. He knew the kind of characters he wanted, but he also knew the kind of style of play that he wanted. I mean, he got great strikers. I mean, he got Kevin Phillips in that division, and I don't need to tell Sunderland fans about Kevin Phillips. Golden Boot.
He was all right, Kevin. Yeah, he was all right.
Honestly, Kevin. I've loved a lot of the players I've worked with, and some of them are on a par with Kev. I'd like to say that, but no, I've never loved one more than I love Kev. He was just such a brilliant bloke. But he had Kevin up front. He had Roman Bednar. He had Ishmael Miller. He had goals all the way through that team. Even had Craig Beattie popped up with a few, and then he got this wonderful midfield of Chris Brunt, Felipe Teixeira, Robert Corran, Zoltan Gira, Jonathan Greening. Just brilliant footballers, all so attacking in the way that they played the game, and we were just an absolute joy to watch, and the players loved it all that season because they were going out to win games. There was games where I always remember. I think it was Colchester at home. We were. I think we were 3-2 down going into injury time, and we still won 4-3. And that was just the kind of things we did. I remember scoring 2 injury time goals. I think it was against Luton. That was the previous season, but that was under Tony, and we just scored so many late goals. We went to Coventry and blitzed them 5-0, and okay, we every now and then we could go and lose a stupid game as well because whilst our forwards and our midfield were wonderful, time has gone on to show that a lot of the defenders we had around that time, weren't great. Pele, not that one, didn't go on to have a great career. Leon Barnett had a decent career around the sort of like football leagues, but he wasn't, he wasn't top notch. Carl Hufkin came and went. I think he was part of that group. Obviously, Paul Robinson was a good player and Dean Kiley behind them, but we didn't have a great defense. We didn't have a great defensive record either. But it didn't matter. It was like Keegan's Newcastle in the Championship. It was just, and again, the Sunderland fans, sorry for bringing Keegan's Newcastle up, but they were just as likely to lose 4-3 as they were to win 4-3. And that was us that season.
I loved watching them drop 12 points at Christmas. That was fucking fantastic. And hopefully...
I bet you could watch the Liverpool 4-3 game again and again and again and watch Keegan slump over that advertising board.
In the words of the man himself, I loved it. I absolutely loved it when they beat them. I suppose there's only a couple of questions left, but look, I don't think we're going to have a new manager, and that might change, but the consensus is we won't. We're speaking here on Wednesday night. So how will West Brom fans viewing that game? Because look, we're not in great form, but then suddenly we have a manager that's gone. The players have come in. The players are still there. The manager's not. No manager's come in. They've got a caretaker manager most likely. So how do West Brom fans view that? Because look, without being arrogant, Sunderland away, I'm assuming, is seen as a tougher game than most.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, look, and you've got some good players, Jack Clark, people like that. You've got some really good players. I think I can only speak for myself. I like to think we go into games with a degree of humility. I know that didn't necessarily come across last weekend when some people lost their head about us losing to the league leaders in the last minute. But I'm gonna give those people the credit and put that down to passion. But I think we've got a degree of humility about us at the moment. I think when we go, the fans after we lost to Southampton were just like, I've never been so positive after a defeat. They just looked at the performance. We got done late on. We made a little mistake at the back, and Adam Armstrong has punished us. And I think that's a bit where we will be at the weekend. I think as long as the players show up and the performance is there, I think whatever happens after that. And I think that's where most reasonably minded Albion fans are at the moment. I think. This group of players it says this touching wood. This group of players very rarely fail to show up in any way, shape, or form. They don't win every week because we ain't that good, but they generally show up and give a performance that they can be proud of. And I think as long as we do that, as I say, whatever happens, because it ain't an easy place to go. And if we get beat, we get beat. But yeah, I think as long as the performance is there, I'd like to think there's enough humility in our fan base to realise we're a small squad. We've just lost one of our best players this week in Matty Phillips through injury. We're without Jed Wallace as well, which is another big blow. Obviously, our captain. So I think Albion fans would say if we go there and we give a good account of ourselves, even if it's another Southampton and we get done 2-1 late on, or another Leicester and we get done 2-1 late on, then that is what it is. But, we can be proud of where we are. But I think the big thing is we give ourselves a chance going into every game. We gave ourselves a chance going into Leicester last weekend. And I don't think we fear anybody either. But yeah, I think you've got to have humility about it as well.
I know what your prediction is going to be because you kind of said it. But I normally would ask as final question. But I want to take a moment to celebrate myself here because I've only had 7 correct predictions in 3 and a bit years on this show. And I got one right last week with a 1-1. So you know what? I'm sticking with it. 1-1. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. I think you're good defensively. I think we're all right going forward. But we don't have a striker. A 1-1? Yeah, no science behind it, really. Where are you going? 2-1?
I'll go 2-1 to us. I think, and what I would say is I think if we score the first goal, we'll win. Let's put it that way. And I always feel that way about Albion. I said on Talk in Town before we played Leicester, because they said we've conceded the first goal in like 6 games in a row or something. And I said, the last thing you want to do against us, because we will shut up the shop, board up the windows and the doors, and it'll be a hell of a time getting through. I think, to be honest, I think if we get the first goal, I think we could potentially go on to win it 2-0 because I think you'll push and you'll push and you push and we'll do you on the break. But no, I'm going to go away from me 2-1 and say 2-0.
I won't take that, and I will bid you a farewell and say I hope you have a terrible weekend. But thanks for coming on, Chris. I do appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
My pleasure.